Hey, Sens fans, welcome to Season 5, Episode 6 of the Senstennial Podcast. And today we are Bennettless, but we are still trying to bring some heat to the podcast. So, in Bennett's stead, we'll see what we can do. But today we're going to talk about Ottawa Senators parting ways with GM Pierre Dorion. We're going to look at potential GM hires. Then we're going to take a look at their most recent game versus the LA Kings, because I'm sure there's a lot we can talk about there. And that will probably lead us into a conversation about the coaching in Ottawa and how long the current situation lasts. So we'll kick things off right away. We'll talk to Matt about this. Both Matts here today. Now, we talked about this a little bit already on our live stream that we did the day that Dorion was actually fired slash dismissed from the organization slash
Resigned.
mutually parting ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's a lot of different language used. But anyway, what were your thoughts on that? And do you think that the Dadonov situation was actually the final straw, or do you think that they were trying to look for a reason that they could move on from him overall?
I think it's a really interesting time being a Sens fan right now, obviously, because everything's kind of doom and gloom. And this whole Dadnoff no trade clause thing kind of came out of the woodwork after the Shane Pinto stuff. And so I feel like Andlauer had said, he was really hoping to keep it quiet. And then it obviously did not stay that way. But something that Andlauer kind of had mentioned in the press conference, and I'm just remembering it now, and I didn't really talk about it. Somebody like kind of asked a question. I think it was Garriock regarding like, was this the final straw? And then Andlauer sort of alluded to the fact, like, in my first initial press conference when I bought the team, like I was talking about like going in and learning. And he said, like, and I've learned a lot. And I thought that was a bit weird to kind of connect that with the Pierre Dorion final straw thing. So all this to say, this whole sort of long road to get to this point is I think they found the reason to fire him, but they couldn't really justify it before without it looking, he signed Tim Stützle and Jake Sanderson, two of like the premier players on this team, to sweetheart contracts before they had left their ELCs. He signed Brady to an excellent contract as well. Like there are good things that Pierre Dorion did. And then there obviously was a lot of bad stuff that Pierre Dorion did. And I think like the fingerprints, and everybody has said this, his fingerprints are all over the team. And somebody had pointed out, like, yeah, his fingerprints are all over the team, and it showed like Hamannik's advanced stats and how they are like the absolute worst in the league right now. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, I absolutely think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But he could have like done something weird in the office and then be like, haha, we got him, like I feel like it was gonna happen this year, regardless of what was gonna happen. Um and yeah, and I think a lot of it, I was surprised. Like I felt if they had fired DJ, that also kind of was going to lead to them firing Dorion too, because he gave them DJ's the DJ stamp of approval. So
Yeah, and I think part of it for sure is the fact that that debacle with the Dadonov no trade clause and
yeah,
not informing Vegas, that blowing up to the size it did and being known across the league that that happened with Dorion is definitely a huge fumble.
yeah,
And when I think I saw a good point about it, like if you have a GM and they go on the phone with another team, they have to have faith that both those parties will, be on the honor system and both will
yeah,
know what they're talking about and both will agree to terms and know everything they need to know before they get a deal done. And so it does affect Ottawa going forward if they don't make a change. Because if a GM's on a call with Ottawa, it's like, hey, is Pierre Dorion going to give me all the information I need to make a fair assessment for this team,
Yeah.
and a fair deal on both sides, right? So I could understand how that definitely disrupts the integrity of the hockey ops department for the Sens. And Steve Stais going forward, I don't have any concerns about that. It's a fresh face.
No.
He's seeing this roster. Obviously, not for the first time. He would have done his homework before getting a job with the team. I imagine, Ann Lauer would have reached out to him. Stais would have done some homework, done his own research on the team, going into the role. But anyway, all that to say, like, it'll be good to have a fresh set of eyes in the front office. And I'm also really glad that they didn't let Ryan Bonus go. I talked about that a bit on our live stream as well, but I'm
Yeah.
just glad that they didn't hold the entire front office responsible for that debacle. Like, I personally think Ryan Bonus should stay put, whether they move him to like head of pro scouting, or keep him as an assistant general manager. I just want him to stay in the org. But the search for the next GM now will start, and I don't think they'll rush it, but I also don't think they'll take a super long time with it. Like, I feel like we'll find something out in the next couple of months about a potential hire. Now, we've seen a few names thrown out there. I know Matthew Darsh's name from the Tampa Bay organization was thrown out there. We've seen Peter Chiarelli's name rumored floating out there. Nice little kitty cat action in the background for those of you
Dan, she's
watching.
really going for it right
Yeah. For
now.
those of you on the YouTube version, for those listening to the audio, there's a kitty cat attack on Matt's doorway. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, so those are a couple of the names that have been thrown out there. And, is there anyone else either that I failed to mention, or, somebody who you think the Sens should at least have a conversation with?
Well, I think you've already brought up somebody that is already working in the organization, and Ryan Bonus. I also do you know how, like, if Bonus was there when this whole no trade clause thing happened?
I will double check when he was hired.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, Bonus isn't on those calls, so he's also not, he wouldn't be responsible for those types of things. But I do think, like, Bonus has done a lot of good stuff, and he seems to be, like, held in high regard when it comes to his own job and around the league. And I think that's one of the challenging things with Pierre Dorion, because there's a lot of stuff coming out right now, basically saying, like, he wasn't held in the highest regard in NHL circles with anybody. And I've heard that, like, from multiple different people. Um, but I think you have to bring in somebody who's going to bring, like, legitimacy to this front office. And I don't necessarily think Pierre Dorion is a bad general manager, and I think he will get another shot somewhere else, because he is a good hockey mind, and he knows what he's doing. But he was handcuffed in for quite some time, and then, once those shackles came off, I think his mindset had sort of shifted to doing other things. So I don't think being in a decision-making position is the best thing for him, but he will still be an asset to an NHL club. With that said, though, somebody had on Twitter had sort of, like, put together the connection between Matthew Darsh and Anlauer, and that they had done some serious while the Habs were looking for a new GM. Matthew Darsh was involved in the hiring process, as he was going interviewing, and they seemed to like each other quite a bit. And, like, quite frankly, Brisebois just got the GM job in Tampa. Darsh isn't going to be taking that job anytime soon, unless Brisebois goes to a different team and says, like, you know what, maybe that's what I want to do next. But at this point, like, Tampa's got a good thing going. They would be kind of stupid to get rid of Brisebois. I think Darsh, his next move is going to be to a different organization. And another guy that I think is in a similar position, is well respected around the league, is Eric Tulsky with the Carolina Hurricanes. He has been, those two guys have been in every conversation when it comes to a new general manager somewhere. And Pittsburgh was a perfect example. Both of those guys were being considered, and ultimately it went to Kyle Dubas. Shocker. He's his own boss. um, but I think there are a lot of really good options. I think you need somebody forward thinking that knows the new NHL, and those guys do, whereas a guy like Peter Chiarelli doesn't, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I just want to interject and say so Ryan Bonus came in the following season. So his first season with the Sens was 2022-23. So he
Okay.
wouldn't have been involved in the Dadonov
Exactly. So
situation.
he wouldn't have been at fault at all.
Yeah.
So the vibes are immaculate with that fella. He's got a great head of hair, great smile.
He's also got a good track record behind him, and he's a younger guy. And not
Yeah.
that I have anything against the older GMs and executives of the league, but I do think that it's nice to have fresh blood enter the
Yeah.
NHL and get those senior front office roles. I
Yeah.
think there's some other solid candidates out there who I'd like to see become maybe advisors to the Sens, get some front office experience. I know people have tossed Cheryl Pounder's name around as like a coaching replacement, and preferably, I would rather a coach who has experience leading a team to playoff success come in rather than a first time coach. But in like
Hmm.
a senior, role as a hockey advisor or something like that, I think that that would help bring another element because she's a fantastic analyst. So having that element in the Suns front office would be nice. But as a GM, I don't know. I think Matthew Darsh or Eric Tulski, both good options. Uh, Dubas, honestly, like I know as Sens fans, we either love him or hate him. I've seen a lot of people
Yeah.
are like, "Oh, he's like a Sens fan," and they joke about it, and it's all good vibes. And then other people like he's a complete idiot, or I see instead of the Dubas, it's like the dumbass or
Yeah.
Dubass.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, he's a guy though who's a young hockey mind, and I think partnered up with Steos, that could be a good combo. But hey, he took a job in
Absolutely.
Pittsburgh. It is what it is. Not on the table anymore. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they go. But either way, like Ottawa hasn't had a different general manager in 8 years. So this will
Yeah.
be a stark change to the front office. And I'm really interested to seeing what direction the Sens go. I mean, hopefully upwards, but interested to see that the new direction or the new vision, if you will, of the front office going forward.
And I think it's going to be beneficial for every part of this team, and like a fresh face is important. And Bennett kind of beat that drum all summer, where it's like just clean house. And it's tough because he got the keys to the team basically in September. So you can't really do that, but I think we're going to see that that's going to start happening like very shortly. And I'm totally okay with like keeping some people, but our pro scouting department and our amateur scouting department needs to be like overhauled, in my opinion. um Simply because we have not gone out and traded for a good player in quite some time. That's like,
Chikrin.
okay, that those are like softball home runs. It's lobbed to you and you just hit it out of the park. But it's like those depth guys that are going to benefit your team. And then, quite frankly, our amateur scouting has not been very good recently. Back like the best pick. You know what? I'm not even gonna bother. Like, it's just 2021, 22, and 23 have were just kind of like write-offs. Some of those guys definitely can do something, but I think you need fresh blood in the war room, so to speak.
And also, I'm not going to completely rip on Dorian. I know some people would love that. I do think that there were some boneheaded moves for sure. I still disagree with the signing of guys like Del Zotto, Good
Yep.
Branson, like trading for Good
Yep.
Branson, trading for Josh Brown, um, just signing a guy like McEwen. I mean, hey, listen, he's a league minimum contract, so I'm not going to make a big deal about that because you can bury the contract in the minors.
Yeah.
It gives you an AHL guy who, will stand up for his teammates and whatever. I don't care about that, to be honest with you. But the
Yeah.
Hamonic, the Del Zotto, signings like that, trades that don't really do anything for the team.
Yeah.
Um, like the step on thing. The Murray thing wouldn't have been a bad idea if he had given him like a 1 or 2 year prove it contract,
Yeah.
because at the time Murray was 26. So
Yeah.
you could have given him a 1 or 2 year deal, and then he's still like prime for a bigger contract. And
Yeah, I think you
now,
only just kind of worry if he walks, if he does have a good couple of years, but like why leave sort of thing.
yeah, but then it would have changed the money, right? So
Yeah.
right now, instead of Ottawa being in a position where they have that 1.5 mil against the cap because of Murray being like retained salary, and
Yeah.
losing a couple draft picks, that's a situation which could have been dealt with differently. I didn't mind the Zaitsev trade as much because it led to having the space to get Chikrin. So I just kind of lumped that in as part of it.
Yeah.
If we're going way back, like Melnick era, there were some more trades that were frustrating, but like you said earlier, I feel like Dorion was hamstrung on some of those. So I will criticize certain trades, like the Brandstrom trade. I like Brandstrom. I think he's a
Yep.
fine
But
defenseman.
he's not Mark Stone.
No, and
Like,
Cup winner Mark Stone and
yeah.
team captain of that Cup winning team. So
Yeah.
that's unfortunate, and I think we lost a really solid player in Mark Stone, and that's what hurt the most, more than giving up Carlson, in my opinion. And maybe that's a hot take, but the Carlson trade honestly came down to just luck. Norris evolved into a player that we didn't think he would. Even Dorian at the time said he expected a third line center. Norris
Yeah.
becomes what he became, looking solid even this season so far in. I believe 4 goals in 6 games, so looking
Yeah,
good for him.
goal against the Kings looks
Yep,
good.
and
Very
we'll
happy with him.
and we'll get to that shortly, but all that to say, like, I think the tenure of the Melnick era was very contentious. Some rough trades, some decent trades. Like, there's a lot more to criticize. I think in the past couple of years, obviously, people are going to look now at the Dadonov trade debacle, how it turned out, and also take a look at the DeBrincat trade, and that'll be one that I think will be very controversial between Sens fans. I've seen people say, they're glad Dorion took a gamble, rolled the dice, and hoped that this guy would become a stud with the Sens and sign long term. And other people are like, why even risk it if you can't talk to the player? If the team refuses
Yeah.
that you can talk to the player, why do you make a gamble like that? So I can understand it from multiple angles. I don't think he was the best GM in the league. I don't think he was the worst GM in the league. I think he was
Yep.
maybe average,
Yep.
and
I completely agree. Like,
he
I think he's run of the mill.
exactly. And so that's why, like, I'm not super upset that he was removed. I think it's time
Yeah.
for a new voice, new vision, and let's see where it
Yeah.
goes.
I love it. And I think this is the perfect way to kind of segue into talking about that LA Kings game that uh,
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about that. I just want to say for everyone watching or listening, thank you for doing so far. Please consider dropping a sub or following us. We'd really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, like, if you're watching, you can see all our social medias on the screen. So please consider following us on there. If you're listening, we're most active on Twitter or X. So you can follow us on there at Senstennial. And yeah, so let's get to that LA Kings game. Now, it got slightly better towards the end of the game, but when they were down 3-0, oh my. Like, oh, you know what? I'll let you comment on first, then I'll get into my spiel. You go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I know you were there. I had a volleyball game. We beat the first place team, no big deal. Then I came out and saw the score and I was like, oh man. Got home, put it on just as a hate watch sort of thing. And then they scored in the last minute. And I thought the first 10 minutes of the third period, they were buzzing. Like, I felt as though they had all of the momentum and they were going to come back. And then DJ Smith struck. Basically, every time the Senators touched the puck going towards the LA Kings zone, they immediately got rid of it and threw it down the ice. That was the most abhorrent offensive demonstration of dump and chase I've ever seen. Especially when you are down to a team that plays big, plays like sluggish, type, like they're like quicksand. They will like suck you in and let you not move. And I respect McClellan a lot for that, because they are a good team. And our forwards should not be dumping and chasing as much as they did. They 7-8 minutes of dump and chase unsuccessfully. They got through once, and it was because they actually carried the puck over the zone. And then Norris made a nice pass over to Tarasenko. Tarasenko got a great shot off, good save by Talbot, and then all of the momentum was gone once again. Everybody pointed out, like, if I on Twitter can look and see that the dump and chase isn't working, I am sure that Todd McClellan has somebody in his ear saying they're just dumping and chasing it. Have the defenseman like pull back a bit so they can just easily retrieve it. I just don't get it. There's no adjustment to this system, and this is where we are. Got pissed off after another game because DJ just does not know how to adjust.
And I think losing some key personnel definitely doesn't help the situation. Not having Zub, not having Shabbat, not having Brandstrom, those are all guys who you'd like to have in your defensive core. So that's frustrating for sure. But I was actually in a 400 suite for the first time in a long time at the Kings game. And yeah, it was kind of neat, but it also offers you a bird's eye view where you can see more of those X's and O's, as they call them. And I think it was after the culmination of like Ottawa's momentum and scoring that goal that Norris deflected in off that JBD shot, it went downhill from there. And yeah, like you said, there were a lot of dump and chase plays. Even my partner, who I've said before is a Habs fan, said, she's seen a lot of frustrating Habs games, and she said that watching the Sens is so frustrating because there's so many times where they pass to no one, or they try to do a fancy play instead of trying to find their open teammate, or try to carry it through double coverage or dump and chase the puck, but then the chase is only one player or like maybe two players. And there were times where she's like, that guy dumped it in and went to forecheck, and then there's no support. And I was like, yes, it is insanely frustrating. And it's not so. When I recorded this podcast with you guys, like I think late last season, we talked about coaching, and I said I wasn't at the stage of like firing DJ. I was like, let's see how it goes. The roster is much better, and I was like, I'm willing to try this, just to see what happens. And I think being at the game against the Kings, it finally broke me.
Let's go.
I know. I walked out, and I hate doing this. I cannot state how much I hate walking out of a game early. I did it against the Sabres. It was frustrating. And then that game, I stayed till the end against the Kings because, there was a chance and there were glimpses.
Yeah.
When there were 2 minutes left in the period, and Ottawa's forwards decided to dump the puck in to get a 5-man change instead of passing to their defense with LA sitting back, allowing the forwards to change. And allowing the players to change and then going with possession. They just threw it away to LA, who killed probably a minute plus of the clock. And then and Korpisalo, I could see him in net and his body language, and he kept like looking at the bench and then like looking back because LA would be pushing it through the neutral zone. And you could tell he was frustrated. The dude he has faced in the last 3 starts, and I posted this on Twitter. 38 shots against, 42 shots against, 38 shots against.
And 921 save percentage, 951 save percentage, 921 save percentage.
Yeah, so he has been good. The last 3 starts, he has given Ottawa a chance to win every game. And the one game they won against Pittsburgh, they shouldn't have won. Like, Korpisalo sends them.
Yeah, and like he's making 10 bell saves too. Like this is like, I'm glad, Matt, you finally come to the dark side. I kind of wonder if they had fired DJ last year, like would that head coach be still here? And I mean, if it was like Claude Julien they brought in, yeah, he probably would be. Because like he's respected. He has 2 seasons in his entire career where he's under 500. DJ just hit his 300th game as an NHL head coach. And I've never not been frustrated with this guy. Like, we're at this point that it's so goddamn tiring having to deal with this over and over and over again. Like, we're 9 games into the season and I'm like, we don't have much runway left to get rid of a coach, bring in a new coach, and like save the season.
Yeah, by the time December rolls around, it's gonna, I don't want to say be too late, because there
Yeah.
have been times where teams who are near last in January have pulled it back, but you need to go on like a fantastic run,
Yeah.
and the Sens can't rely on that. They need to
Yeah.
get back into the like playoff standings like soon, even if it's not like coming up in the next month. Like
Yeah.
they need to get back there.
And like
And
it kind of sorry, go ahead.
it's okay. I was just gonna say, like, yes, I've entered the fired DJ camp. I think the change is going to be tough with the Sweden road trip. Like, it kind of throws a wrench in the gears. I don't think they're going to fire him before that. And that's when I was going to say to you, not when is it time to say goodbye to DJ, but when it will be the time that they do say goodbye to DJ.
Well, I guess it's almost a bit of the same question because like you can't really prophesize when, but when should.
You should.
Uh
I am telling you to prophesize.
okay. Well, like if I was the GM and my team at the 10 game mark was not above 500 and has looked sloppy in more games than not, and you had 5 seasons previous to this where it was the same thing. It was it 2 seasons ago when in the first 20 games we were like 4-12 and 3 or something like, or 4-12 and 4, something like that.
It was bad. I don't want to remember.
Yeah.
I've
And
repressed
so
that.
this is my point is if you give him 10 games, you see what you got. And like quite like good coaches make do with what they have. Good coaches work through injuries. Good coaches know how to teach defense. Good coaches know how to run offense. So personally, I would say you get rid of him if they lose on Saturday. Like tomorrow. If they lose tomorrow, you fire him because they're not only losing, they're losing to a division rival. So, like I would have already started the interviewing process, quite frankly. That's just me though. Does firing him after the Sweden trip make sense? Like I guess so. How many games in is that? 15?
About, I think.
Yeah, that's almost too much for me personally. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I would love to see somebody new come in. I don't think they'll do it prior to the trip.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think it'll come. I think it'll
yeah.
come if the season is still progressing as is now and they're hovering around 500 by December. I think that's when they make the change. And maybe it's too late by that point, but
I think it is too late at that point. The only reason like you could see them waiting for that long is seeing how bad Pittsburgh is doing if you really want Mike Sullivan.
that's what I was actually gonna. I
But
said it on my live stream, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I also think Dubas loves his coaches. Like Dubas loves his coaches to a fault, like Sheldon Keefe, for example. So like he may just hold on to him and then try and have them figure it out themselves. But I don't know.
Well, on that note, everyone, thank you so much for listening to this week's
Yeah,
episode
this
or
negative.
watching.
Yeah.
I hope we did Bennett proud. I know he did want to get a shot in that he was disappointed with Batherson. And I think there's a lot of players who could maybe take some blame. So I
Yeah.
won't go too heavy on any single player, but Bennett, that one's for you. But yeah, thank you everybody. Appreciate you supporting the channel and supporting our podcast, and hopefully some interesting news coming in the near future. So stay tuned for that, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Go Sens, go.
Go Sens, go, everybody, and have a great weekend.